Good afternoon, everyone. So for my final exam, I shall be discussing about the intertextuality of two similar yet distinct works of art. So I have chosen Shakespeare's classic play turned book, Romeo and Juliet, and the 2011 3D adaptation film called Gnomeo and Juliet. So just to summarize, the classic Romeo and Juliet talked about two wealthy families, the Capulet and the Montague, who loathed one another to the point that Prince Ascalus made a rule that whoever starts a fight shall be banished from the kingdom of Verona. So, of course, Romeo and Juliet's love are doomed to fail, which it did in the end. But this is where I'll compare the differences between the classic to the adaptation film. So, Romeo and Juliet is a story that's built very differently, but it's still an allusion of the classic Shakespeare play. You could say it's an allusion and a parody. So first, I'll identify the differences of the details, such as the characters, plot, and the setting. So first are the characters. So the main couple is Romeo and Juliet. So in the classic, they are humans, but in the adaptation, they were portrayed as gnomes, like those small mini statue you put in the garden. And although Juliet in the classic is ladylike and composed, Juliet from the adaptation is somewhat similar to Romeo in the sense that they like to seek adventure. So another is the age gap. I've noticed that in the classic, Juliet is 13 and Romeo is around 16 years old, above. But in the adaptation, they're both portrayed as people who are mature teenagers who have their own responsibilities in tending to their own gardens. Like they have this sense of responsibility instead of acting out on instinct. So and then lastly, another difference is how Romeo and Juliet were each other's first love in the film. But in the classic, um, Romeo already has a first love, which is Rosaline. So yeah. And then there were also supporting characters. So there these supporting characters from the drama that were also present in the adaptation. So first is Tybalt. So Thibault's like exactly the same with Thibault in the film because they're both feisty and enjoys the conflict of both families. And another similarity is how I think Romeo kills Thibault in the drama, but he didn't intend to do it. He was just swayed by emotions, which he really did kill Thibault in the ending. However, this is where the difference came in the adaptation because Nomeo was hesitant to fight Tybalt until the end. Like he wasn't just swayed by emotions. He even tried to save Tybalt from being broken into pieces, like literally pieces. He broke. So I think that's like the difference, the only difference they have with Tybalt and Tybalt. So and then we also have wait no okay I have an Tybalt in the classic was Juliet's cousin, but in the film, he had no relations to Juliet. He was just a member of the Red Gnomes or the Capulet. So no relationship. That's another difference. So here we have Benvolio, who Benvolio is the cousin of Romeo in the classic. But I feel like in the adaptation, Benvolio is Benny because Benny could just be the nickname of the original Benvolio from the classic. So even if the names are a bit different, there's another. It's they're still considered like Benny is still the counterpart of Benvolio in the film. So there's another difference, which was the relationship between Benny and Romeo. So Benvolio, as I've mentioned before, was the cousin of Romeo, while Benny in the film was just the best friend of Romeo. So basically, they're not really related; they're just best friends who hang out together in the garden. So yeah, that's a difference. The rules. So let's move on to the setting. So I think it's already evident in the classic that it's just a feud between two rich families in a kingdom. So you can see that there's a kingdom here in the original classic. It's also a real place. And then the setting in the adaptation is in the garden, where they are being owned by different humans who also hate each other, which could also be the cause why the gnomes hate one another. Because in the classic, the reason was also unknown. But in the film, I think it's evident that both owners of the gardens hate each other, but we do not know why. So here is I'll just zoom that place. So there. So then lastly we have the plot. So same context, different events, and different yet the same ending. So um, the drama is a tragedy, like the classic itself, and the adaptation is more of a romantic comedy genre. And so one of the differences I can think of in the plot is how Juliet and Romeo from the play have secretly married one another with the help of a priest. But while in the adaptation, they only agreed to elope, like they wanted to elope, which was also agreed by a friend, Featherstone, to escape from the feud. But that's it. That's another major difference in the plot. So, but their eloping failed since they were caught by Benny. So yeah, another plot difference in the drama is that in the classic, Juliet and Romeo met in the Capulet feast or party because Romeo just happened to sneak in with his cousin Benny. So which is kind of somewhat, yeah, that's where they met. But in the film, Juliet and Romeo met outside in an abandoned greenhouse. And that's how the attraction happened. They both found out about their identities by themselves in the film. However, in the classic, someone told them who their real identities were. So that's also another difference. So and then lastly, another plot difference is the ending or the noma. It's different but also the same. So what do I mean by this? Um, Both the play and the adaptation are the same in the context where both families decided to end their feud because of the deaths of their children. However, the difference is that no one actually dies in the adaptation. That even though Tybalt, Romeo, and Juliet died in the drama, they didn't die in the film, which is a good thing, good ending. So this is what I like about the adaptation because of the ending. So, and then we will move on to the second question. Is there a new contribution of the adaptation in our time? So yes, I do think I do think so because with the use of lighthearted humor, catchy songs, and loving characters, it would still give a message to both adults and children that love conquers hate in their hearts. The movie may be a repetition of the love conquers hate cliche, but it contributes in a sense that not everything ends in a tragedy. And if you work for it or try to resolve your differences, it might not be so bad. Like you might even get the ending you're looking for. So the adaptation basically just gives people hope, which the classic did not give. So anyway, let's move on to the third question. Share the character's emotion in handling the conflict of the film. So, in facing the conflict, I have to admit that the main characters or the main couple are stupidly brave. I am easily swayed by their determination to help their parents in terms of responsibilities. They're very independent. So, and while dealing with these conflicts, they were stupidly brave. So, what do I mean by stupidly brave? So first of all, stupid in a sense that they agreed to elope. And eloping means you're escaping from reality. Yet I kind of understand why, since they're just teenagers anyway. But they're brave. They're brave also in a sense that they actually tried to fix the situation to the point that they wouldn't mind receiving or dying. So I love the voice actor so much for portraying these emotions that invoked excitement, sadness, and kiligness from the film. So the film has semblances from the classic, but at least when they were faced with conflicts, they decided to fight it head on. So which is what I really like about the characters in the adaptation. And finally, from my preference, which do I like better, the classic or the film? So personally, I prefer the adaptation because what I love about the adaptation is that it's filled with so much humor that I never realized when I was young. I only realized it after rewatching it last week after like 8 years ago. And then there's like I just watched it, and then there's the use of famous classic songs of Elton John, which I personally like because the play is a classic. So I guess it's a great choice to use classic love songs as well. Because, Elton John's songs are really awesome and it really fits the mood of the romantic comedy genre. And then the adaptation is more kid friendly than the tragic play, which is a good film to recommend to children if you ever want to teach your kids about the story of Romeo and Juliet, but more in a lighter sense, like no morbid endings. So it's for them to have knowledge on the gist of the story without telling them about the tragic ending because they're still too young to learn that. So they'll just learn from it when they grow a little bit older. But at least in this film, at least in this film they'll be able to learn about the story more. So honestly, it was the film, the adaptation, that introduced me to Romeo and Juliet and the world of Shakespeare. I also love how William Shakespeare is a statue here. Like, he tried to give advice to Gnomeo or insight on how to resolve their differences and hate between the families. So I kind of find it funny and ironic. There's also an allusion of a real statue in the UK. Yeah, that's a real statue. So yeah, that's basically what I love about the film. So yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much for listening.